At 1000 local time, US forces were already tracking cartel runners who had just made a fatal decision in the eastern Pacific. Their boat tore across open water at 50 knots. Fishing vessels top out at maybe 12. These were not fishermen. They were running, unaware they had been detected more than 2 hours earlier. Inside the Go Fast, the crew carried quiet confidence. This was their 18th run. Same route, same hull, same payoff to the right people. The helmsman glanced repeatedly at the GPS. On time, on course. Everything looked perfect. Under blue tarps lay $42 million in narcotics. Split 5 ways, minus the cartel's cut, it came out to roughly $2 million per man. Enough money to disappear forever. 4 Mercury outboards screamed at full throttle, skimming the sea roughly 140 miles offshore. No other vessels, just endless blue water and the illusion of escape. But at 25,000 feet, an HC-130J, Super Hercules had been orbiting since 0600. Its AN/APN 154 surveillance radar swept a 200-mile radius, cataloguing hundreds of contacts. One stood out at 0800, speed inconsistent with vessel type, a course cutting away from normal shipping lanes. No AIS transponder. 3 indicators, 3 strikes. The sensor operator switched to the Star Sapphire 380 HD electro-optical system, zooming in from 140 miles out. Stabilized optics revealed 4 outboards, tarps lashed tight over the hold, and men moving on deck. At 0945, the critical change appeared. The Go Fast stopped zigzagging and locked into a straight northerly heading. Confidence or a fuel-saving decision. Either way, it was a mistake. The tactical coordinator keyed the encrypted sat phone. Kimball, this is Eyes 1. Target holding 50 knots on steady course. Recommend launch interdiction assets. The feed cascaded through Link 16 into the cutter Kimball's Combat Information Center, then onward to Joint Interagency Task Force South and the DEA liaison tracking cartel movement patterns. The Kimball sat nearly 200 miles away, limited to 28 knots. Too slow to chase. But speed was no longer the equation. The math was simple. At that pace, the Go Fast would drain its fuel in 4 hours. The helicopter could launch, intercept, and end it long before that. The cutter would arrive later to secure the scene. The vessel was heading north-northeast, likely toward a mothership or coastal rendezvous. Standard cartel doctrine. Run hard in daylight when radar traffic blends into civilian clutter. But they were operating inside the reach of a unit with a very specific answer for vessels that refused to stop. Striking an engine block from a moving helicopter should be impossible. Hitron had done it 500 times before. Today could be 501. At 1100, an MH-65E lifted off the Kimball's flight deck. Twin turbo mecha engines delivered 853 shaft horsepower each. This wasn't the search and rescue Dolphin most people imagined. This airframe had been modified for a singular purpose. The pilot banked toward intercept, climbing to 3,000 feet where fuel burn stabilized. 20 minutes later, the co-pilot's called visual. The Go Fast left a white rooster tail stretching half a mile behind it, screaming across the sea at full throttle. From 3 miles out, it looked like someone had drawn a chalk line across the ocean. The smugglers continued textbook counter-surveillance, zigzags every few minutes, unaware they had been under continuous track for over 2 hours. That tactic frustrates surface pursuers, forcing constant recalculation. Against a helicopter, it is meaningless. While the boat cut left and right, the MH-65 flew straight lines, slicing vessel physically could not. Inside the Go Fast, the crew was likely doing their own calculations. 4 Mercury 300s burn roughly 25 gallons per hour each at wide-open throttle. With maybe 400 gallons on board, they had already burned half. Cargo weight reduced range further. They needed 3 hours to reach the rendezvous. They had less than 2 hours of fuel. Something had been misjudged. Physics was no longer on their side. The helicopter had 4 hours of endurance and the option to refuel. This was no longer a chase. It was inevitability unfolding in slow motion. The MH-65 descended to 500 feet, holding a 500-meter offset. Outside small arms range, perfectly positioned. The pilot initiated compliance procedures. Technology would speak first. The co-pilot powered up the LRAD, projecting commands at 162 decibels, audible above engines, wind and rotor wash. Commands rang out in English and Spanish. Stop your vessel. Prepare for boarding. This is the United States Coast Guard. Rotor downwash turned the sea into chaos. Spray everywhere. The smugglers did not slow. 5 men, 2,800 pounds of contraband, 20-year sentences if caught. Running was the only option that offered hope. 15 minutes of warnings, sirens, and visual signals produced zero compliance. Authorization for warning shots came immediately. The M240B came up, 650 rounds per minute. The first burst stitched tracer fire into the water ahead of the bow. The unmistakable hammering rolled across the sea. Most vessels stopped. It redlined the engines. Props cavitated. Hard turns left, right, then left again, attempting to disrupt the firing solution. Against a helicopter, it was theatre. After 3 warning bursts, non-compliance was declared. Authorization followed instantly. The gunner transitioned weapons from the M240B to a Barrett M107.5 OBMG. This was no longer a warning. Hytron crews are the only airborne law enforcement unit in the world authorized for this mission. Since 1998, they have interdicted over 500 vessels, removing more than $6.7 billion in narcotics from cartel logistics. Selection begins with the top 1% of Coast Guard marksmen and gets harder. Months of training, move-in platforms, sea state 4, 6-foot swells, 20-knot winds, thousands of rounds fired. They learn to read waves, time the ocean, and synchronize breathing with aircraft motion. The ballistics are unforgiving, both helicopter and target moving at 50 knots. Pitch, roll, yaw, wind deflection, engine vibration, salt spray. Most snipers shoot from still ground at stationary targets. Hytron gunners do neither. Engines are the target. Disable propulsion without sinking the vessel. Preserve evidence. End the chase. The Barrett M107 weighs 30 pounds. Each round exits at 853 meters per second, carrying over 11,000 foot-pounds of energy. Aluminum engine blocks might as well be paper. The first round destroyed the starboard outer engine. It didn't stall, it disintegrated. Speed dropped instantly. The second shot severed fuel lines on the port outer engine. Speed fell again. The third shot crippled the inner starboard engine. Barely steerage left. The fourth ended it. Metal, oil, silence. The Go Fast drifted dead in the water. The helicopter held overwatch as 2 RIBs launched. Pincher maneuver, textbook execution. Tactical teams closed in, rifles up. Commands sharp and final. Hands up, on your knees. 5 men complied. The vessel, stateless under maritime law, was destroyed. Accelerant, a single flare. The most expensive bonfire on the ocean, burned until it sank. Only then were detainees and cargo transported to a US port for processing. Bye for now.